Hey there, I'm Kat and this is Brews and Reviews. In today's video, I want to tell you guys all about the books that I read in November, and this is actually the second time that I'm filming this video, because I filmed it once, much closer to the actual, month of November, and promptly deleted it. Just off my memory card, just went, delete, don't need that. Definitely needed that though, didn't I? So here we are again, and I'll just try and talk about the books and see what I remember, because I've read a lot of books between now and then. Hopefully my little sieve brain can actually remember details. So the first book that I picked up was Better Hate Than Never by Chloe Leese. This is the second book in the Wilmot Sister series. I absolutely adored the first book in this series, so I was kind of disappointed when I didn't love this one. I really thought I was going to, but I found it really difficult to connect with the characters. So this series of books is a romance, but it's based on Shakespeare plays, so this one is an adaptation of Taming of the Shrew. And I do think that partly played into why I didn't quite get along with this book very well, because it's really hard to adapt Taming of the Shrew in a way where you actually like the characters. I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You did it just right. This one, it was harder to like the characters because they really were not bringing out the best in each other, and it wasn't great. This one follows the sister of the main character who has just come back, and the sort of dysfunctional hate rivalry that she has with their family friend, and romance happens because that's what happens. I don't know, I found it really difficult to actually engage with these characters. They just came off as mean quite a lot of the time, and then they flipped a switch really quickly, and I just kind of didn't gel with it a little bit. I also found that in this one the representation had a lot more telling than showing, whereas I felt in the first book in this series things were explained really well and were sort of shown as they needed to appear in the story, whereas in this one it was a bit info dumpy, and it was like, oh, by the way, because ADHD you do this, and because this you do this, and it's like, well, yes, but like, could you have told it to me in a slightly better way that was more cohesive with the story? Perhaps. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars because I did enjoy it. I just think that I'm more disappointed because I had such high expectations from reading the first book in this series, and I liked it a lot more. The next book I read was Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. Now this one is one that I wasn't really sure about because I had seen the film a long time ago and I remember really liking it, but I've just never been able to watch it since because it's never been like free anywhere, and I'm cheap, so free. So I wanted to give this book a go because it had very autumn vibes, and November is very autumn, so it felt like the appropriate time to pick it up. I think I was expecting something a little bit more cozy, and this one ended up being very heavy on family relationships, but almost in the negative. It seemed like every sisterly relationship was kind of hating on the other sister. I enjoyed the overall story, but I think I just found it hard to sort of connect to these characters, and it was a little bit tougher of a read than I was expecting it to be. Perhaps my interpretation of this is a little bit tailored by the film and my expectations of a sort of cozier vibe, and I didn't get that, so I was a little bit disappointed. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because the book itself was good, and I am willing to continue to read the next book in the series because I have heard that Practical Magic is the weakest in the series. I think it was Amy Myers that, ooh, my hair, it just come. Amy Myers told me that Practical Magic was the weakest in the series, so interested to see if I like the second one. Then next up I picked up Five Nights at Freddy's, The Silver Eyes. This is exactly what you would think that a Five Nights at Freddy's book would be. If you're not familiar with Five Nights at Freddy's, it's like a haunted arcade where animatronics come and try and get you as the security guard. This particular book is about a group of friends who go into this closed down arcade where their friend went missing and Five Nights at Freddy's things happen. That's about it. I actually quite enjoyed it. I do like some of the scares of Five Nights at Freddy's. I feel like some of them are done quite effectively, and some of like the nasty things that happen are set out quite well in this book. So I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars simply for the creep vibes. I was just coming off of November, the Five Nights at Freddy's film hadn't come out yet, and I was very into the hype for that, so that was fun. Next up I picked up Goio by Junji Ito. This is a manga and it's about a death stench, a stinky gaseous nastiness that also then transitions into body horror. Essentially this couple go on a holiday to the beach and they see a fish come out of the sea, and it's got like legs and it's like walking around, but it stinks and they can't get rid of it, and then all of the fish come out of the sea and they've all got legs and they all stink, and then as Junji Ito tends to do, everything goes a bit crazy and body horror stuff happens and it's all a bit gross and there's loads of stinky gas. Like, this one is not for people who don't enjoy thinking about gaseous people. because there's a lot of that. Honestly, it was gross. I really enjoyed this book, but like it was good. That's kind of what I expected going into it, so it delivered. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I did another buddy read with Kayla from Cracking to a Good Book, and we read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This is Ali Hazelwood's first YA book, and it's about teens and chess. I actually enjoyed this one less than her adult series, and I'm not sure if it's the change in setting, because I really enjoy her stuff about women in STEM in academic fields and working towards things in science perhaps more than in chess. This is about a teenager called Mallory who is absolutely fantastic at chess, and she gave it up because of something that happened in her personal life, and she has the chance to return to chess to make some money, which is really useful to her because her family is struggling, her dad is out of the picture, and her mum has a chronic illness. She is sort of responsible for a lot of the breadwinning in the family, and she has 2 younger sisters to manage. So everything is very stressful, and there is a lot on Mallory's plate, and I think that is really well covered in this book, and also her reactions to it are well covered. They are what I would expect of a teenager, so they're not necessarily rational decisions that an adult might make, but I think that's a really interesting thing to consider in this book. Mallory and Nolan are the 2 main characters in this book, and I find them likable, but they're not lovable. Like, I didn't really just want to know them and be with them. I think sometimes they can be a bit unlikable, but like that's part of why I like them, because you want people to be like a bit more well-rounded. The end was also a little bit rushed. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It's enjoyable, but I don't think I'd pick it up and read it again anytime soon. Next up, I reread Vicious by V. Schwab. I think I actually enjoyed this book a lot more on reread than I did the first time, probably because the vibes were off. I was feeling Christmassy, and this book is like not Christmassy. This book follows a group of characters who are EOs, which are extraordinaries, and they have like specific abilities where they're able to do things, and they're not nice people. None of them are nice. They all have delusions and darkness in them, and I like that. That was good. It was fun to read about. Like, not fun because nothing in this book is actually fun, but interesting. And I am definitely much more excited to read the next book. Maybe I am holding off on reading the second book in this series so that I can get something that begins with V and a person that begins with V for my A to Z challenge for next year. But, like, yeah, I'm more excited to read the next one than I was before. Gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like you're noticing a theme this month. I've given a lot of things 4 out of 5 stars, as obviously the mood that I was in. So I briefly mentioned my A to Z challenge there, and part of the thing that I was really focused on in November was trying to hit my A to Z challenge. I actually had 3 A to Z challenges, one for the author's first name, one for the author's last name, and one for the book titles. So I was mostly focusing on book titles here. At this point, with V just achieved with Vicious, I also had U, X, and Z. So I managed to get 2 of those in this list, but X is on my December TBR, as Xmas turns out to be a great hack for the letter X in December, just in case anybody is trying to do the A to Z challenge and they don't know. Xmas, that's the way forward. The next book I picked up was Undead by Frank Delaney. Now, I thought that this book was going to be a sort of prequel to Dracula, because it kind of hinted at that in its marketing. Now, bear in mind, this is a book that I got for free included in the Audible library, and it's very short. Turns out it is not a prequel novella to Dracula, and it is in fact just a story about Dracula and how it was written and other vampiric influences at the time, and just about Bram Stoker in general. So it really wasn't what it said on the tin. And it's not just me that got confused, because if you look at the Goodreads page for this, it's just full of a bunch of people going, well, I thought this was a novella about Dracula, but it's not. So I think maybe the marketing has failed this book a little bit. It was fine, it was very short, and it wasn't what I wanted it to be, but I guess I took part in Non-Fiction November, technically, by accident. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Next up, I picked up a book called Zombies, and that's by Dawn Roth and Chris Lane, and this one is kind of a little bit like World War Z, if it was like smaller, condensed, just one person doing all of the telling of the stories and recording things. Essentially follows a guy from the day of a zombie outbreak further on into their life. And it's kind of depressing, but in a good way. I actually liked the different stories and different people that were encountered along the way. Did not enjoy that there is a dog that dies though. Don't love that. Not for me. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. There's not much to say about it really. It has a really depressing end though, which is kind of a downer, but yeah, it was enjoyable enough, and it was free also, so I enjoyed that. But I really make myself sound like I don't like paying for things, but considering I picked this book up specifically to fulfill a challenge. I feel like free is great for that. So the next book I picked up was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and this is one I've been putting off for ages. I had left it until November specifically because it had the word good in it, and that was the Buzzword Readathon's word of the month, and I found this a really interesting book. I wanted to love it, but I think that I had some personal problems with this book. It's written by an Indigenous author about a group of Indigenous people who hunt some deer when they shouldn't, and then they get haunted by a thing. And I don't want to say more about it than that because I feel like that's a good thing to go into it knowing. Now, I found it really creepy, and I thought it was really interesting the way that this was done. I think my chief problem with this book is a personal problem, and it's all of the animal gore. I don't love reading about animals being in pain, in any sort of hurt, and I think that this one uses animal suffering and gore in a way that is really effective and really creepy, but wasn't for me, and I found it really hard to read about. So while I find it a good book, I probably wouldn't ever read it again because I got a little bit upset at certain things that happened. So I do think my rating reflects my personal opinion on that. It was very disturbing, but in a great way because it's horror, so you want it to be disturbing. I have mixed feelings on it, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars, but just bear in mind, this is a good book. It just was containing some things that I couldn't personally handle or appreciate. 3.5 out of 5 stars for me. And then the last book that I read in November was Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne. The V in Verne was covering the surname part of the AtoZ challenge. What are you gonna do? I also haven't read very many classics this year, and I thought this would be a good one. It wasn't really what I expected, but it also wasn't bad. Honestly, I don't really have much to say about it. My favourite part about this book was when the main character woke up from a prolonged swoon. It was a bit weird because they go on this expedition to try and find the centre of the Earth, obviously. And it seems like they run out of food a lot, which is fair enough. They're on an expedition and they don't have all this food, right? But it seems like they run out of food, and then the next thing that the guy writes down is, I was dying! I didn't have any food! We were just about to pass out and die and crumple to dust because we were dying from lack of food. And it's like really moany. The main character's quite whiny. He's not a natural explorer. I mean, fair, I also think that I'm gonna die if I haven't eaten in about 20 minutes, but like, this guy was a bit over the top. I found it fun though. It was an interesting one. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So yes, those are the books that I read in November. Sorry this is so late. I filmed it once before, deleted the footage, and then didn't want to film it again. But here we are. Those are the books I read. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!